And gavel in. And we're going to go ahead and start as we do. First of all, welcome. It's so good to have school back in session, everyone. My name is Ed Hermes. I'm the president of the Osborne School District. Wonderful to see everybody. And we're going to start, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I hear some very strong voices out there. I love hearing. It's wonderful.
Something as simple as the pledge could bring such smiles to faces.
Next, we have our land acknowledgement statement, which we do every meeting. Arizona is home to 22 tribal nations. The Osborne School District is situated on the homelands of the Acoma, O'odham, and Peepash people. Osborne School District recognizes the original inhabitants of these lands and recognizes they still reside throughout the city of Phoenix. We recognize their wisdom, impact, and generosity towards us. Osborne School District is surrounded by the original Salt River canals that were constructed by the ancestral Sonoran Desert people, the Hohokam. These canals created a livelihood for the people and are still in use today. We acknowledge the modern indigenous people that inhabit this area, as well as their Sonoran Desert ancestors, the Hohokam. Okay, next we're going on to our school presentation and our district celebrations and announcements. Dr. Robert.
Well, to start things off, welcome back. It's great having our first meeting of this school year. For all of those out there watching on YouTube, and for those of you that do not know me, I'm Michael Robert, superintendent, proud superintendent of the Osborne School District. It is wonderful. Oh, thank you for the applause. I appreciate that. That was so lovely. I love being welcomed like that. Oh, I was not begging for more applause. I was just grateful for the one that I got. This is one of our favorite nights of the year because we get to meet all of our new staff. Before I start calling up my principals as they compete on who's going to better introduce their staffs, I want to introduce just a couple of members that are new to our administrative team. There's no need for you to come up, but when I give your name a call, I'm going to introduce a couple people, and Abby's going to be introducing a couple folks as well. But we've got some folks that are, returners. We have one returner, same face, different place. So Felipe, stand up. Felipe Carranza, this is his 8th year here in the Osborne School District as part of our administrative team. He's been the principal of Encanto School for the past 7 years, but this year he's assuming new leadership at the district office. He is our director of leadership and school improvement. His main focus is the work that we're doing through the NIET grant. He is working on systems and strategies to make sure that we're delivering the best education possible to our students. We have wonderful national partners with the National Institute for Excellence in Teaching. Mr. Carranza has a history of educational leadership excellence in his years at Encanto, and we're looking forward to him doing the same in guiding all of our principals. You're going to get a chance to hear from her as she's introducing her staff. But Kim, can you stand up? We would like to welcome Kim Fernandez as the new principal of Encanto School. Kim is an elementary teacher at heart. She's spent the past 2 years as a principal in a high school alternative setting, credit recovery for the most part. Is that correct? Yeah, so that's 2 years in the secondary world, but she has spent a lot of years as a classroom teacher, as a coach at the elementary levels. And so not only is she getting back to come back to elementary schools, but she gets to be at an elementary campus filled with children ages 3 through 9. So being on the Encanto campus is an absolute joy for her. We went through a process where I bet she was a little shocked when she walked in the room and saw how many faces were sitting there to interview her. But the selection was clear. Staff and parents and everyone that I've talked to so far is super excited. We're glad to welcome Kim here to Osborne. Abby, you want to come on up and introduce a couple folks?
I have to play too. This is a competition. All right. We are thrilled to welcome Dr. Sarah Royal as our Director of Student Services. Dr. Royal has a variety of experiences and skills that make her a great fit for this position, including special education leadership, academic coaching, higher education, and many years of teaching in special education classrooms. The core value that I would like to highlight for Dr. Royal is growth. When she started, we had approximately 10 open certified positions within our special education team across our district, including 2 psychologists, several related service providers, and the TOSA position. But I'm so very excited to share, however, that due to Dr. Boyle's relentless pursuit of candidates, we are now fully staffed with the exception of 1 part-time related service position. So thank you, Dr. Boyle, for helping. All about joy. Here's a pinwheel for you. Now, I would also like to officially welcome Alexis Aguirre as our new curriculum specialist for language acquisition and biliteracy. Prior to this role, Alexis served as a master teacher at Encanto. Alexis is not in attendance tonight because she is at the Roosevelt board meeting where she also serves on the school board. I wonder who will get done first tonight. So the core value I would like to highlight for Alexis is equity. She maintains a laser-like focus on students and our community. While she is a constant learner who seeks research-based ideas, she is also the first one to roll up her sleeves to be part of the work. In the short time that she has served in this position, she has supported countless teachers, teams, and leaders, and we are so lucky to have her on the team.
So now it's time to meet who all of our new teachers are this year. We're going to do this in reverse tenure or in tenure order. So we're going to start with the principal that has been here in Osborne the most number of years, and that would be Miss Hayes. Come on up, Osborne Middle School.
Good evening, members of the governing board. Thank you for having us this evening. I am thrilled to be able to introduce our staff to you, and I will say that these two will sparkle more than I could even imagine if I were to do the introductions. You'll be hearing from them. We do have 6 new staff members. 4 of them are actually coaching as well. And so these 2 canceled their practice to be here, so I think
Oh, wow.
that. So we have 2 that are still at practice, and then 1 had a family emergency and 1 that couldn't make it. So I'll introduce them quickly, and then I'll turn the mic over to these ladies, and they'll introduce themselves. But I can't tell you how proud I am and thankful for the new staff that we have here. They're tremendous. They live out our 5 core values every single day. They brought a positive energy to our campus. They are building our children up and just seeing their potential, and I just couldn't be more thankful for the opportunity to work with them every day. So Miss Alexa Moreno is our girls PE teacher. She is still teaching and coaching. Miss McKay, she has a family emergency this evening. Her grandma's ill in the hospital, so sending her well wishes. But she's a former OMS student. She's a Firehawk, and so I was the vice principal when she came through her time there, and she got into teaching because she worked at the school and she worked in the front office, and they'd asked her to sub one day, and so she went and helped. And she said, "Oh my gosh, well this is awesome! I get to have fun and help kids." So that's where her passion started, and then she wants to continue that. So she's with us. And then we have Miss Quesada is in her first year of teaching from NAU. She's teaching language arts for us. And our final teacher, Mr. Rooks, he's our boys PE teacher. He comes to us from the NFL, actually. He stopped playing football there and then found a passion in teaching kids, and he's just so thankful for the opportunity to influence our kids. He came to us last year in October, which is a very hard job, to take over a classroom mid-year, and he's done a phenomenal job and has taken a great step in his second year at OMS. So without further ado, I'm going to have Miss Dash step to the plate.
Hello. My name is Deshaunique Smith, but the kids call me Miss Dash. I don't like calling by my last name. This is my second year teaching. I am the 7th grade math/pre-algebra teacher at OMS. I graduated from the University of New Mexico, and I've only been in Arizona for about a year. And I don't know, things I like to do outside of work. I love movies. I'm a cinephile, so I like going to the movies a lot. And yeah, that's pretty much it about me. Thank you.
Thanks, Miss Stash.
Hello there. Patricia Warren, I've been teaching for 15 years now. This is my 15th year. Actually, I'm my student teacher who used to live in Sabat there in Encanto.
Oh,
They're like, oh,
wow.
when's when I graduate?
Ah.
But I'm happy to be back, and I teach 7th and 8th ELs, and I am coaching currently at OMS the 8th grade girls and boys team. Hobbies, you can tell. I just came back from playing nationals in Mexico, so I did something weird to my foot. But I love to teach, and the reason why I decided to become a teacher is I came to this country in the year of 2000, and my 3.5-year-old struggled with the transition, so I decided to become a teacher and be a support for those kiddos that they need
Mhm.
a comfortable place to be, to feel welcome and to feel understood. So I wanted to be in that country.
Wow.
So I hope I can do it at Encanto, at OMS, and at Osborne District. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, OMS. Considering our principal's tenure, this isn't tenure as principals, but in the district. So in his 14th year here, I welcome up Mr. Martin from Clarendon School.
Oh, yeah.
We got a different mic for you, Jeff.
I, li- I like what's happening so far.
Thank you. Test, test. All right. Let the games begin. We are ready for another great year at Clarendon, and we have some amazing new educators joining the Cougar family who are on the run and ready to race to the finish line to ensure all of our students at Clarendon receive an Osborne education. On your marks, get set, go! Our first leg runner, Amanda Allen, has been with our lab program here at Clarendon for the past 2 years. She is ready for back-to-back victories as the lead teacher, building strong relationships and ensuring her students make it to the finish line. She's so speedy like the Flash that we only got a picture of her today. Colleen, can you hold up the picture? It's right there. There she is. And she has passed the baton on, and now all eyes are on Stephanie Gonzalez. She is our 6th grade dual language Spanish program, and she's running. Stephanie joins us from the grand state of Idaho and from Teach for America, and is ready for a photo finish with her students. We didn't think that through. And our anchor is Lorena Villacorta, and she is no stranger to Clarendon as she joins us from the NAU AZTR program, where she was a teacher intern for our 4th grade dual language classrooms last year. This year, she is taking over the reins of her own 4th grade dual language classroom and is ready for her victory lap. And together, Clarendon wins gold and the crowd goes wild.
It's always an adventure with Mr. Martin. We never know what we're going to get. Love the Olympics theme. Love it. You ready, Miss Nikolic? Okay, it's time for the Solano Tigers to come on up.
So I don't have the same show for you all this year. I told them I'd take one for the team because there always has to be a loser, and that'll be us. But we are winners because we're game changers, and these are members of our team. And so I'm going to start with, and then I'm going to be talking about myself. This is Brian Blanc. He's our new master teacher, and he is born in San Jose, California. and he was a military family, so he moved around a lot. His parents have been in Phoenix for about 20 years, so he considers this his home base, and he's coming from Chinle, Arizona, where he taught on the Navajo Nation for 5 years. And his reason for picking Solano, I did not pay people to say this, but I'll take it. Listening? He said the reason why he picked Solano is he received a high recommendation to work with Miss Nicholas from Patty Cruz at NIUT, and the driving decision was to work with her, and the core values aligned to his personal philosophy, specifically equity, joy, and growth. And his greatest gift for our students is that they are able to advocate for themselves and tell their personal stories to the world. And he is, his secret talent is he is a rescue diver. And his secret unknown talent that we're twins with is his ADHD. And some people in the world, you're gonna high five or leave me hanging? Leave you hanging. Some people in the world don't know that that's actually a secret talent. So welcome. Brad.
Welcome. Wonderful. Wow. Wow.
And our lovely Miss Sapiro, Denise Sapiro, she is a fifth grade math teacher. She was gonna be sixth grade, then she moved to fifth for me. And she has been in Phoenix for 8 years. And another praise that was not paid for is that she picked Solano because the principal is great, and it aligns with my professional belief system. And her greatest wish for our kids is for them to love learning and improve a lot. And her hidden talent is she's a synchronized swimmer.
Wow. Oh my.
All right, and next, Miss Becky Yang. She is our new music teacher. This is actually her second day with us. She is amazing, and she comes to us originally from China. She spent 2 years in Connecticut, and then she moved to Arizona in 2020. So this is her 4th year in Phoenix. And the reason why she came to Solano is that she's concentrated on her self-growth and mutual learning, and that she felt the team here was supportive and considerate, and as an educator, being supported and innovative and creative in her discipline is super valuable, and she can feel the vibe.
Right on. Wonderful.
And then the hope for her students is that music is a wonderland that everyone can get access to, and that she hopes her students can enjoy music as a part of their lives, more or less, and be able to express their feelings within music. And her secret talent is she can be a little bit of a fortune teller. So, and she's telling us certain things that are going to be in our near future. So we look forward to sharing that with you. And then Miss Soki Chim Stebrip, she is our 6th grade math teacher. That's where I got it mixed up. And she came to us through the AZTR program, and she has been in Phoenix only for 1 year. And her greatest hope for her students is for them to ask themselves, for them to be leaders themselves and make a difference in our community. And she wants to keep her hidden talent hidden at the moment.
Fair.
And we've got a few more for you because I like you to know everybody that's coming up in Tiger territory. So this is Damie Flores. She is our new social worker. She was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. And she chose Solano not only because it was close to home, but because she was ready for a new beginning, and that Solano is a diverse community, and she would love to put her dedication into continuing to make it a safe and positive environment for families and children. And her greatest hope is for all of our children to be successful and to believe in their strengths and their abilities, and that they're capable of anything. And she didn't list her hidden talent, so we'll unveil that later. And this is, Emily, I had to make sure I had the right one because I lost Sarah along the way, sorry, but this is Sarah's counterpart, Emily Atkins, and she is our speech teacher, and Sarah is our SLPA, thank you. I always struggle with the acronyms. She comes from North Carolina. She picked Solano because of the team spirit and energy. Her greatest hope for the kids is to communicate effectively in any capacity with their peers and to be included. And she is a magnificent baker. Remember that baker right there. Next is our amazing Giselle Dayan. She is our new 3-year-old preschool class that we just started this year. And she is from Scottsdale, Arizona, but has lived in Phoenix most of her life. She chose Solana because she wanted to work with preschool children, and heard Solana was an amazing school to work for. She was right. And her greatest hope for our kids is that her littles leave the classroom knowing that they're loved and cared for in many ways, and they grow up to achieve big things. And she says she doesn't have any hidden talents, but we know she does. So we'll get Matt too there as well. And then this is Gabriel Chacon. He also came through the NAU AZTR program. And he's originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's been in Phoenix for 4 years. And one of the reasons he picked Solano, really the people and the leadership that made me choose Solano, just seeing how much everybody really cares for one another was important to him. His greatest hope for his students is that they have a lifelong love of learning. I want to make sure I didn't have them upside down, sorry. And that he can inspire them so that he can be their favorite teacher. And he can crochet. And he is a master chef. So
Wow.
we know who we'll be calling for our next lunch. And this is the amazing Anne-Marie Newman. She is our new Strive 1 teacher in our autism program. And she wasn't able to fill out my little information, but luckily she was with us last year doing her internship. She really helped out in our Strive room with our kids with autism, with strategies. And so moving into that role was a perfect fit for her, so we welcome her. And then last but not least, Darian Carter. Now talk about an OG of the district. He was a student at Solano. And then when I was the principal at Clarendon and started our student-led recess program, we partnered with the Y. He was one of the coaches that came over to teach them the game and help them facilitate our student-led recess program. And then when I landed at Solano, I saw him still working in the after-school program at Solano. And he was like, Ms. Nichols, I said, Darian. And so last year he came over. I was like, I told you one day I was going to get you over here. And he said, this might be the day. And I said, yes, it is. So he came with us last year. He came with us last year as an educational assistant in our autism program. And he has a degree in art. That's his passion. And so he's transitioned into being our art teacher this year. And
wonderful.
he's absolutely amazing
Wow.
as well. So these are your current game changers for the year. And we will keep you up with his secret talent. Oh, wait, what was Darian's secret talent? Oh, art. Thank you all.
Thanks,
and
Teresa.
welcome. We're very happy that you chose
Thank
us.
you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Ken, you're in the on-deck circle. You can be getting ready. So while Ken is getting ready, I'm going to introduce the 2 teachers from Montecito Community School. They're not here, but I wanted to share something about each of them. Mr. Frank Bailon is a true Montessori practitioner who embodies the spirit of what it means to be a member of a Montessori community. The interactions and relationships he's built with our oldest group of students empowers him to tackle new independent challenges in a meaningful and purposeful way that develops integrity. Over the past few years, he's actually been working in another Montessori school in the adolescent community, so teaching junior high, 7th and 8th graders, and he's moving in and is doing the upper elementary. I met Frank actually 4 years ago when we were first thinking about doing the Montessori program, talking with his wife about possibly being a primary teacher with us, and hit it off with her, but I also hit it off with Frank. We had the same trainers, Montessori trainers back in the day, so I know how highly I think of my teachers, and so he's trained by the best out there. And then Jess Morales Ruan is in the lower elementary classroom this year, doing dual language, and Jill started this off by saying, finally, we got him, because we've been trying to recruit Jess to come to Osborne for 3 years, and it never felt like the right time with their family. Jill and Abby were constantly, I think Abby's been in touch with Jess for like a year and a half. Jill and Katrina went through their training, and he was a member of their class, and has so much respect for Jill when he heard that, she was taking over as the TOSA this year and her leadership would be at the school. I think that may have been a big determining factor, and I think it's the right time to come over. He's a fantastic teacher, terrific human being. His deep knowledge of Montessori practices, but also life practices and skills are demonstrated in the way he holds conversations and gives presentations in the classroom. Each child has a great potential to succeed and find their own way with Jess as their guide as he allows them to discover, think, create, and grow. So we've got 2 new members to the teaching staff. With our Monarchs, a couple of assistants are also beginning this year, so we're just super excited about the growth that's happening there. We can move on to Longview.
Let's see. Hold on, Jeff started this. So, President Hermes, board members, Superintendent Robert, thank you so much. If I could hold on. On Fridays, we like to play music. Right? Every Friday. So you don't have to sing. Each Friday we play this on announcements. Teachers are talented. I give love to all of my people. All of my people need love. Give some. I give love to all of my people. All of my people need love. I give some. But really the message is give love all the time that we can. So I'm honored to introduce some of our new hires. We have a couple that are not here today. I'm going to start with Alexis Sanchez, who is our kindergarten dual language teacher. Alexis was the first hire as we started the hiring season last year, and I can tell you that when you left our interview, the entire team had this look of, do we have to keep interviewing? Between the excitement and the energy that you brought, but the chills that you put over most of our bodies with your passion and your focus on what's best for kiddos came through, shining through the interview. Something that we just said today in our team meeting, because we're dividing up some classes, was as I was asking a question and thinking about how we could approach something, I noticed that Alexis had a look. And I asked her, and I was so proud of the courage that she took to talk about, have you considered looking at it a different way? And the way that she presented is actually the way that we ended up going. But again, to have that courage within, 10 days of working with me and our team, I just thought that was great, and it just speaks volumes to who you are as a leader and as a teacher. So thank you so much, Alexis. We have Luis Silva, Mr. Silva. Oh my goodness, this is like the shining example of growing your own, right? Mr. Silva, student taught with Miss Green in our dual language. Was she still second grade at the time?
Yes.
Dual language, second grade. Then Mr. Silva moved into our instructional assistant with resource, or educational assistant with resource. Worked primarily with our lower grades and was absolutely phenomenal to watch him having heart-to-heart conversations with our kiddos in the hallways and really seeing the relationships that he built with our kiddos that he worked with specifically, to the point where if we had to talk with them in any sort of situations with the kids, it was really easy to be able to go to talk to Mr. Silva or have him even engage with the students to really get them to a place where they could remain calm and reflect and identify, like, I can do better, I'm gonna be better. And so that was something I heard him share a lot. So Mr. Silva, thank you for being who you are, and thank you for everything you do for our kiddos and our community. You're a class act, my man. Thank you. Next up, we have Julie Jorgensen, who is teaching second grade for us, and we were so excited to have her come interview, and we just had a great connection through our interview time. We speak a lot to, don't worry about all the buzzwords. We want to connect with you and see the things that we know we can't teach people, like how to love children. And those are the pieces that came through so much in her interviews on top of her knowledge and skill set. So another beautiful opportunity for the team to make a pretty quick decision, which was great. Something that I was extremely impressed about with Miss Jorgensen was when she came to school in the summer and she had on a blue dress and a matching blue wagon. And if you know me, the first question I had was, do you have a wagon that matches every outfit? Because I was going to be really impressed. She told me she doesn't, though, so we're going to work on that. But again, Julie Jorgensen, 2nd grade. We also are extremely fortunate to have Erica Sarmiento as our 3rd grade dual language teacher. She is absolutely phenomenal. She has already built a great rapport with our staff and our community, and she is one where her energy just is nonstop, and it's always focused on what's best for kiddos. She's another new hire that had a very courageous conversation with me in which we were working on an award for a child, and we were going to work for a football, and I could see she wasn't really feeling where I was coming from, and the discussion turned into, how about he works towards a reward for the whole class? And that really was a great opportunity for her and I to talk about, I need to start looking at things a little bit differently too. We want to do the individual awards that they can work towards or rewards, but what about the power in him or her, being able to work towards something that the entire class would benefit from? And again, that was another courageous conversation where her nonverbals really were telling me she wasn't feeling it. So I'm very proud of the relationships that we're building amongst our staff and our leadership team, that they feel comfortable speaking up to us to make us better as well. You'll hear over and over, our theme is growing together, and those are 2 short examples of individuals helping me grow as a leader. We have added Deborah Stoffer as a resource teacher. She is not here this evening, but she has been wonderful with helping us line up the schedules, and if you've ever had to do resource, you know the trickiest part is making all of the schedules come together. And last but not least, the wonderful Penny Thompson. She is also a resource teacher for us, and has done a beautiful job of connecting with our kiddos. Unfortunately, she had a little car incident between California and here, but she's getting that all worked out, and she'll be all good. She showed up the very next day ready to go. So we are absolutely blessed to have such an amazing group of new hires for our community and for our kiddos, but also helping us all grow. And with that said, our theme, as I told you, is growing together. But you each have a gift bag over here that is a candle, because I feel like we should grow together professionally, but y'all need to go home and glow with your loved ones. So thank you all so much for everything you do. Thank you, everybody.
You got a chance to meet Miss Fernandez a little bit earlier. I'm going to invite Kim up along with all of her Roadrunners from Encanto.
Let's build a house. I'm sure that we can learn how. It will be much easier if we choose to work together. Every house needs a strong foundation, 4 walls and a sturdy roof. Then we can add some decoration.
So thank you so much, Mr. President, board members, Dr. Robert, for having Encanto tonight. I asked the whole team to come on up in support of our new teachers, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves here in just a moment. I did want to say that when I left my interview here in the district office boardroom, I had this overwhelming feeling of, wow, this is it. I cannot describe what that felt like, except for to say that I knew that I was going to be loved and I was going to be challenged, and I have been looking for that for a really long time. So I am super excited to tell you our theme, which is building on our strengths. Wow, Encanto has an amazing toolbox already. And we are so excited to build on that toolbox this year and learn and grow together and bring new tools and new players to our toolbox. I'm going to mention our 3 members that couldn't make it here tonight. Brianna Hobbs, our art teacher, is joining us, as well as Dr. Cynthia Kent, our school psych, and Vanessa Bejarano, our new third grade teacher. But I'm going to have each of our new teachers come on up and introduce themselves and tell us what they teach and tell us what they love about Encanto or Osborne.
My name is Neriberta Arizona. I come from Arizona Teacher Residence Program. I'm really grateful to be here my first year teacher residence. I didn't bring a tool, but they're willing to teach, grow all the value of this school district. I'm very grateful for you to pick up me. So I'm very grateful to be in bilingual program. To see the children having skills, so that encouraged me to be more the best for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Nikki Murray O'Hare. I teach dual language kindergarten at Encanto, and I chose Encanto because I wanted to feel safe in a place to grow, and I found that in Encanto.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Hi, my name is Megan McHale. This is my 28th year of teaching, my third year in Arizona. I teach self-contained K through 3 this year. And I was very excited to join the Encanto family because that's what it felt like to me, was a big family that would welcome me. So I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Palma. I'm the third grade teacher. I'm the other half of the Vanessas. There's two of us in third grade. She's a dual language. I'm mainstream. I love Encanto because it focuses on the whole child, and then I love that they're so organized, and that I feel very supported, and I know that it's going to challenge me and help me grow.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So thank you, and as we always say at the end of our announcements, beep, beep!
Before we take a little break, just a few more celebrations. We've got the Osborne School District Educational Foundation that supports our Osborne Teachers of the Year every year. But we send names as nominations to the Arizona Educational Foundation, and they compete for the Arizona Teacher of the Year. And this year we have Casey Call. Casey was in the top 15 last year. You're able to resubmit. And Casey did that, worked really hard on her application, and we are so proud of her. She has moved on. She is a semifinalist. She's in the top 10. It's so awesome. It's so amazing. She's continuing to compete. It will soon break down to those top 5 that will then be competing to see who is the Arizona Teacher of the Year. Casey's in the running, and we're very proud of her. You know, when we have opportunities for people to learn more and bring things that enhance our district, we jump at those opportunities. As a celebration, I'm very proud of Dr. Emerald Woodland and Lisa Nye. They recently completed a full day training and certification in mental health first aid. And when these types of trainings happen, it improves our overall wellness offerings here within the district. That way, individuals who may be seeking someone to talk to know that they have resources in-house, someone that may be familiar or friendly to them. It also provides Emerald and Lisa the ability to notice, assess, and make determinations around what might be a good next step for a person that they may notice exhibiting signs of temporary or longer-term distress. We're always supportive of the initiative individuals take to become further trained and be a resource in greater ways within the district. So I definitely want to celebrate the work that Emerald and Lisa did. And this is for them, but we are all going to benefit by the resource they are able to be for us. Looking here at all my notes of so many things to celebrate. So there are some elections recently. We're here, all of our schools within the district are within legislative district number 5. Just a congratulations to, the folks that have moved on from the primary are most likely going to move into successfully stepping into the House of Representatives and the State Senate. So we congratulate Sarah Ligori, who's continuing her role as a member of the House of Representatives. We welcome Aaron Marquez, who also serves as a governing board member in the Phoenix Union High School District, and of course, congratulate Leila Alston for her continued work and service. Another election that was supposed to be happening is a governing board election. There are 3 seats that were up for election, and Luis Peralta, who's sick, so well wishes to Luis that's out. He's not able to be with us tonight. Made the decision not to run for a second term, so those 3 seats, there was definitely going to be one person running with 2 incumbents. We only had signatures that were successfully submitted by 3 members, so we will have continued board service from Rhiannon Ford.
Woo! Yeah.
We will have continued service from Ed Hermes.
4 more years, man.
And actually, in the room present tonight, I'd like to stand up Eric. I'd like to welcome Eric Thompson. Eric should not be a new face to you. He's a dad of students here within the Osborne School District. Our $100 million bond and our successful district additional assistance override was made possible by Eric's work on the Political Action Committee, Move Osborne Forward. He has done exceptional work for the past 2 years. Eric serves on the Osborne School District Educational Foundation. He's going to have to give up his seat, though, when he takes a seat up here. But we're very grateful for all the years of service. Eric, do you want to say a couple words? You don't have to.
Buddy. Speech.
Yeah, I'm excited to join the board and really help to continue the great success that Osborne has. I've got a kindergartner and a 3rd grader, so just looking to help out the district any way I can.
And he'll be able to do that because he currently serves as a CFO. He knows district finances very well. He's in Tempe Elementary School District, employed in that capacity there, and we are very fortunate to have that level of expertise joining us on the board. So congratulations to Eric.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got through almost everything. One last thing. You're going to start seeing on social media our new school logos. Super exciting. Brendan got in touch with a graphic artist who has been talking with Brendan, talking with principals, wanting to put a cohesive, picture together with what how we brand not only our district. We've had wonderful branding going on district-wide, but also our schools. His working with us, working with Brendan, he was so impressed by everyone that he enrolled his child. So he's also an Osborne parent. But Brendan sent out a video this past week to everyone within the district, kind of as a soft launch, but day by day there are going to be. So you have to follow our social media. Anyone that's out there, all of you guys in here need to follow us on our social media. Not only following the Osborne School District, follow every single school, follow our child nutrition. We're very active on social media, keeping our community and appraised of everything wonderful that's going on here and inviting more people to join. There's going to be a formal launch for each school day by day happening. But just a little preview. Do you have that queued up?
Hi everybody, it's me Brendan. I'm here with some really big news for you today. In case you didn't know, a few years back, our whole district went through a rebrand process. We had an old shield-looking logo thing, and that got turned into our new...
I thought he was actually saying that right now. It's like, is that it? Yeah.
Is it not showing?
There it is.
There he is.
Yay!
Hi everybody, it's me Brendan. I'm here with some really big news for you today. In case you didn't know, a few years back, our whole district went through a rebrand process. We had an old shield-looking logo thing, and that got turned into our new, modern, contemporary-looking Osborne logo. Now, what we didn't do at the time was we didn't rebrand all of our schools, so for a while, we were using these. That tiger gives me the heebie-jeebies. And so we have been going through this process to modernize that look. Last year, I made some stand-in logos just so we had some consistency across the district. However, after a year of work, we are finally at a place where we have new official Osborne logos. I've been working with Mr. Will Mejia of High Rise Creative. He's a community member and now a Clarendon parent. Very excited about that. What we've been trying to create is a series of logos, one for each school, that is modern and consistent, that speaks to the high quality of everything that happens here in Osborne, as well as to the unity of our district. After a year, we finally have those logos. Now, I'm going to be announcing these to the public very soon. They'll be on social media, you'll see them on the website, you'll start seeing them in all of our print media. However, I want you guys to be the first ones to see them. So, without further ado, here they are in reverse alphabetical order. And the best way to do this is obviously with epic music. So if you don't like epic music, you're going to have to forgive me on this one, but here we go. First off, we've got the Solano Tigers. Next up are the OMS Firehawks.
Wow, Firehawk.
Then we have the Montecito Monarchs. And of course the Longview Lancers. Followed by the Echo Roadrunners. And finally, the Clarendon Cougars. And finally, here they are, all in one place, showing that unity, that consistency that we were shooting for. We are very excited to start rebranding our schools with these beautiful new logos. We're proud to have a consistent style that, again, communicates that high quality of everything that we do here in Osborne. So that's all I had to share today. I hope you like them, and I'll see you soon.
And when you talk about,
Great job, Brendan.
When you talk about high quality, when you give Brendan Stacey a charge, he runs with it and turns out amazing work. Thanks for leading this for the past year. And this is a spot where we normally stop. For all of you that came out to be with us tonight, you're welcome to stay for the next hour and a half or so, 2 hours, maybe 3 if you'd like to. But we normally take a little bit of a pause here. Mr. President, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Brendan, do you need anybody photos or anything like that?
I would love to get a picture of all of the, if you are a new staff member that was here to be celebrating tonight, I would like to get a picture of each school with your groups. So we'll do that very quickly, and we'll do them right there. So if we can just, after this, we'll go in alphabetical order. Clarendon, Canito, Longview, Montecito, OMS, Solano. All right?
Okay, we'll recess until the photos are over. Then we'll start back in about 5 minutes or so with our normal agenda. Thank you so much. They look
Welcome to Clarendon, home of the Cougars. Here in Cougar Country, every
In a good spot? Yeah? Okay. On your ready.
Okay, we are back. Our next item on the agenda is consent agenda. Do I have, before we ask for a motion, is there anybody who wants to take anything off the consent agenda for further discussion? I just had one quick question. I can either take it off the agenda or just ask it here. On the RFP for the teacher sub-services, is there a contract that's going to be coming up after this? Is this just a RFP, award, and then the contract comes later for us to review and approve?
Colleen's stepping up.
Colleen's stepping up. Colleen's like, I wasn't expecting that. That's okay. Thank you, Colleen. I know. You stayed, Colleen, I'm going to keep calling you up, okay?
There won't be a follow-up contract coming to the board for approval. So the entire terms of the contract are built into the solicitation. So the RFP itself becomes that binding contract. A couple of the firms did submit like modifications or additional terms to what our solicitation was, and we're incorporating those as part of those contract agreements. But no, they won't come back as a separate item.
Okay, and could you just send us that solicitation? I'm just interested to know what those terms are.
Yeah.
So I don't need to hold this up for today, but if you could just send that over.
We have a section in each of our bids or RFPs which we refer to as boilerplate, which is listed in all contracts. And then there's specifics around this specific scope of work. But I
Yeah,
can-
yeah, that sounds great. Okay.
And then I have just since we're talking about it, is it 3 different? It says Educational Service, Inc., Scoot Education, and Swing Education. Are those 3 different entities?
Yes, so it's a multi-vendor award recommendation.
Okay.
And the base is the need to have a depth in our sub. We currently, over the past several years, have been using 2 vendors through other co-op contracts that we've piggybacked on through Mojave and SAVE and 1GPA. This is our own solicitation that we put out to try to widen that net and provide more depth to our sub pool.
Okay. And then do they kind of all do something a little bit different, or is it kind of the same? And then is it like we start with one and then once we've kind of exhausted that, we move on to the next, or how does that work, just working with 3 different?
Yeah, so they all have very similar practices and processes. Our sub coordinator, Amy Hilberg, works for the district, and so she manages that on a daily basis through our sub software system. So looking at what vacancies do we have and who do we go to, and so she's utilizing all of them to fill as many vacancies as we can. So we don't go through like one exhaustive list and then go to the next and go to the next. We're pushing out assignments based on, okay, how can we fill these? And then really that urgency of day of, and how do we fill as many vacancies that are left on that day?
Okay, any other questions? And now this agenda item is for the entirety of the consent agenda, a lot of amazing partnerships that we have, both new and continuing, and it's wonderful to see. But do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
For a second?
I'll second to approve the consent agenda.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Hearing none, it does pass. Next, we have a call to the public. I have one item here, but I'm gonna per the request, I'm gonna have them speak during the discussion on the item that has been requested. Is there any other call to the publics?
No, just the one.
Just the one, okay. Then moving on, and I'm actually going to move just one item in the agenda because we have some folks here. I'm going to move up the bond update, which is an informational discussion item. I'm just going to go ahead and move that up to next because we have a few guests here who can speak to that. Come on up. Wonderful. Good to see you. Go ahead.
Pleasure to be here, and the beginning of these are always such energy in the relationships. It's really great to see and be a part of. So I think we have a just small little PowerPoint slideshow.
In the this is down for bond update. If you can hop to that section.
Eh,
It's page 305.
I can do it without.
No, it's there. Just got to pull it up.
Perfect. So just to give you a little bit of some updates since probably the last time we met, and the last one was online. So this is really the first one we've had a chance to. It's been great. We've kicked into gear and already started. We've worked on Solano. So as Teresa mentioned, there's a preschool, and so they needed a restroom attached, and so there was so what we did this to take away one of the doors, put block in or brick in that matches. Got that worked out with the of a toddler restroom. So you can see in these photos the progression of that is progress photos. That's a full size toilet. We actually moved that down to a baby bowl. So they are ready to go. Health inspection, all of it's completed and they are underway. So that's been really great. During kind of at the beginning of that process, Teresa came to us with some concerns with some of the circulation at the drive for Solano and some of the parents and the student safety. So Core Construction was the company that did the preschool bathroom for us, restroom for us, and they brought somebody on. They did this project in a couple of weeks' time. They did a great job. So now that has been done, and that's the circulation is working, from what I understand. I've been out there a few times watching it, and I think it's working really well. Yeah, so we continue to monitor anything that's specific safety issues for the school. So we can go to the next slide.
And when you say site circulation, is that cars, like drop off? What do you mean by site circulation?
So there's a YMCA.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes the parents are bringing students kind of across where they should not be. So just to protect the students from vehicles, there was an addition of that fencing. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
they moved the chain link fencing back to allow for a wider sidewalk, more room to walk. And it is very clear as to the path that the students should be walking. Nobody's climbing over the fence trying to go through. So it does, it keeps the parents from trying to be quick and following their own path.
Okay.
That helps.
Makes
There's
it
also a railing that's been put in. When you take that walk from the YMCA down and you come out through the gate that goes, it basically empties from Solano Park into the Solano parking lot. And so there's a sidewalk there, and you can walk along the sidewalk, but parents didn't necessarily do that. They would cut across. And so, number one, the sidewalk's been widened, but there's also a railing that's been added so that keeps parents from going out into the way where folks drive.
So the railing, I can see here really good. That's
Got it.
is that orange rail that you see.
Got it.
Painted. All of the great school colors. Let's see if you don't have any more questions.
Mm-mm.
Kind of leads into some additional work that was done this summer, and one of them was a painting project. Teresa had some areas that she really wanted to see kind of rejuvenated. So these are some progress photos from that. These are actually completion photos. So you can see the orange and the blue for the school kind of carried throughout. They revitalized those tables a little bit and got them painted. So it really looks great. I don't know if you guys ever get out there, but the campus looks really lovely. Another item in the photo, I'll just jump to that. That is their web. They had a web replacement on that piece of playground equipment. It had had a yellow tape around it. The students were not able to use it for quite some time. So, you know, we worked with the Day Bank is the company, and it was like, hey, we even need to replace this and get it so these students don't come back to school and it's still
Mhm.
accessible for their use. But so they did have that done and taken care of, so that was ready for the start of school. We started with the architect evaluation, and I know that last session you guys were able to get that approval.
Mhm.
We did not meet in person, but that went through. Since then, we've had a kickoff meeting with all of the district here, SPS Plus Architects and H2 Group, and it was a great meeting, a good start to what we're going to be, you know, all the initiatives going forward for all the projects for the school and using the bond funding and implementing all of that. Playground and shade structures, I'm working on procurement for that. I have several bids. Kind of had to start, you know, we have to start somewhere, right? So I met with all the principals, kind of got some input from them, of course, as a start, working with different companies. I was able to, I know that there's a lot of playground grants out there. I have other districts that I work with, and so I'm really trying to make sure that we meet the marks on those, that we get the deadlines for the submittal of that, and ideally we would like to get some matching funds through these playground grants. While there's money in the bond, it'd be really nice to have some matching funds. Spend quite as much, so they're out there. Everybody wants to do great things for the school, as you all know. And then district roofing and weatherization also, that's you know, sexiest part of a project, excuse me, but they are definitely very important. So we are working in particular with Sam. A lot of that, there is probably and likely some SFD, the School Facilities Division, some funding and allocation, the ERG, building renewal grants. So working diligently with the SFD liaison, which we've had a few sessions with her, Sam and I. So they're really on board and trying to make sure that we can use any funding available through what they have allocated. So that's the next part. The overall planning and tracking systems, that's something that H2 Group is working on with Teresa, with Colleen. That's a pretty intensive, it's very important that we get that correct. Spreadsheets, evaluations, all of the teacher input, all of the superintendent's input, everybody's input, and working through the bond sales and those amounts and where everything is going to, you know, kind of file into those. So we're like so close. Tomorrow, we meet typically on Wednesdays, and tomorrow should be one of our last checks here for that. And then moving into Montecito, that is a campus that is, as we know, going to become Montessori with a lot of kind of new and fresh ideas. We've met several times out there. Dr. Rivera met with us and SPS Plus Architects just last week, so really excited about that project. And I know SPS Plus has some great ideas, so we're super excited to see how all of that unfolds. And lastly, the coordination of planning on the child nutrition department. We're going to work with Corey on that, obviously. We haven't quite gotten to the point where we can meet. Corey's a very, very busy person, but that is kind of next stop for us, is to make sure that we really tackle that, and they're all very, very excited. So lots of great and creative and wonderful initiatives going on. So very happy to be part of that.
Wonderful. We appreciate H2 and everything you guys are doing for us. Look out for the district. Any questions?
When we're talking about the Montecito commenced design phase, is that where we're, the classrooms where we're, or what is that specifically?
So out of this first bond sale, which, how much was the actual amount of the first bond sale? It was 30 million, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So out of that first bond sale, I'd say there's somewhere around, like, what's our allocation for Montecito? Maybe $12 million?
I don't have the
Was that a
spreadsheet.
yes,
Oh,
Colleen?
there's the,
Yes.
sorry.
So there's you know, Montecito wasn't touched in the last bond. So everything just in terms of, you know, coming up to an equity measure with the infrastructure first of all, but also there's redesign. So there's going to be a lot going into Montecito. What we've done is just a walkthrough.
Yes. Okay.
Just so they could see. So H2, so SPS Plus can see what the building looks like, where our starting point is. Everything is going to involve lots of input. So of course we've got ideas about what Montessori is. Our architectural firm has lots of ideas. They've been doing design, but we also need to engage community. Looking at all of our campuses when we start getting into what that desire is for those 21st century classrooms. Building from what those desires are from the school site level to the community and what we want from the school. But stage one was just taking a good hour to an hour and a half of walking through and seeing what our starting point is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. It was great to hear you talking a little bit about shade. That's one of the biggest things that I hear, especially, really, at least 6 months out of the year, probably more. And all of our schools, I'm thinking of a lot of places like Solano and Clarendon and Montecito. A lot of places just need a lot more shade, just generally in our city, but certainly on our campuses as well. And it's something that, I'll be having breakfast with my daughter and she'll ask me what the temperature is, the high for the day is. And I told her and she's like, and I asked her why. She asked and she said, well, I'm wondering if we'll have recess today, if I can go out for recess today. And it's just getting so hot out there. And so anything we can do to keep the campuses cooler is a wonderful thing. So appreciate you focusing on that.
Yes, so I would say after meeting with all of the principals very, very initially, that was probably their number one
Yes.
Priority on their list is shade.
Shade.
Playgrounds, yes, but,
Other-
kids are always looking for a place to stand.
Yep.
So I do know that, I can't remember who put the grant through, but there was a tree grant, and most of the schools were able to really get a lot of trees to be planted, including your campuses. So it was great to see those go in.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Great to see everybody.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce SPS Plus Architects. They're going to come up here, Dawn and Carolina, and talk to you a little bit about
Sounds
Just had
good.
a quick
It sounds-
question about I know the auditorium is probably, a little bit later on. Do we have like a timeline for that?
We don't.
Okay.
We don't. It will not be bond sale 1.
Okay.
For certain.
That's for certain, yeah.
Maybe not.
I think our numbers on something like that's, a $20, $25 million facility that would be built. So it's definitely not in this first bond sale. It's most likely, we have to start looking at prioritizations, is getting that facility built going to come as a priority before the classroom innovations, that we want to do on all of our campuses. So that'll be a determinant of whether or not it's bond sale 2 or bond sale 3.
Don, good to see you.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Robert, just want to say thank you. My name's Don Brubaker, and I have Carolina Harris. She's also with SPS Plus. She's really will be my right-hand person, be a project manager on this all through the number of years that we'll be working here. Just being here tonight, I feel like I've kind of come back to a family reunion. Just with a lot of familiar faces, just a celebration and so forth. Because I've been working with the district for 35 plus years, and seen a lot of people coming and going, and it is family here. And I just want to tell you, thank you for choosing us. And I finally decided after listening to all the presentations from the principals that I have chose Osborne because of the principal over at Solano.
I know she paid you for that.
No, it's really because of all of you. So, I appreciate it. Too late, right? Did I blow it? Okay. So thank you very much. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Don.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Nice to see you. Yeah, nice to meet you.
This is a standing item on our agendas, throughout this project. So through design, through build, through all of it, this is the team that's committed to working with us for the next 6 to 8 years. So let's get used to one another and working together.
Looking forward to it. And thank you, just as always, to the community that passed the bond with such flying colors, that supported just investing in our schools and allowing us, you can just see the fruits of it up there already, and allowing us to put in a 3-year-old preschool room. We're educating more young kids because our community supports it. So we love it. Okay, moving on from that, thank you so much. You do not have to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you certainly, I'm not kicking you out. Moving on in our agenda, we took that one out of order. We're
public now.
We are going to go, we did call the public. Generally, we have a board presentation, meet and confer, and so I'll call the public for this agenda item specifically. And Storm, do you want to come on up?
Good evening, President Hermes, members of the board, Dr. Robert. My name is Storm Gerlach, and I am the not co-president anymore, I'm president. I'm still getting used to that. I am the president of Osborne Education Association, and I am here to speak about our current board-approved meet and confer policy. OEA was not invited to collaborate, provide input, or participate in the presentation that will be given tonight about the meet and confer policy. So I'd like to provide some background knowledge from the union perspective, as well as outline some goals that OEA has for our meet and confer process. Policy HD outlines the 3 major components of our meet and confer procedure as 1, meet and confer is subject to open meeting law. 2, the first meeting will happen no later than the first week of September. And 3, both parties agree to discuss all proposals. We currently do not enter into negotiations as defined by this policy. OEA's intention is to follow this procedure for the current academic year. It is the opinion of OEA that meet and confer provides a necessary designated space to discuss working conditions of all staff and requires mutual collaboration on decisions affecting Osborne employees. In following this procedure, our goals are to formalize a process that can be used in future years, present and review proposals and negotiate with the district in detail, create an end product of a working agreement between the district and OEA, and to provide transparency to all Osborne employees. We look forward to hearing the information and recommendations presented by Dr. Robert during tonight's presentation and are eager to discuss them further through our meet and confer process this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Storm. Appreciate it. Moving on, we have the board presentation.
All right, Brendan, you ready to pull that up? All right, so can just hop back. I'll kind of tell you how to, yeah. So thank you for this opportunity. We've been asked, in terms of a future board agenda item to discuss the meet and confer policies. So Ed and I got together and, we worked collaboratively on putting together the agenda. And so I propose, making as a starting point, doing this from an educational point of view, of looking at what our policies say, looking at what our practices have been, and recognizing some shortcomings that may be happening from that. So the first place is always, from that learning. You can't start planning before learning what you're working with. So that's a purpose of this presentation tonight, for Colleen and I to just kind of go through what the Osborne meet and confer policies are, the language that's in them, and some thoughts that we have in terms of a starting point. When it comes to collaboration, it's a very active process that we believe in, and it certainly is grounded in Osborne's core values. Before you get into the work, though, there's a lot of thought process and strategizing. And so Colleen and I, just as a starting point, just wanted to dig into these policies and take a good look. So you can move to the next slide, Brendan. Just kind of our agenda for going through this presentation. We're going to start with our very first policy, Policy HA. Read through that just so we kind of recognize what the actual goal of meet and confer is. We're going to talk a little bit about our core values here in Osborne, and see how that, those core values that are associated with our strategic plan, And then we're going to step aside from just looking at the values in and of themselves, but see how they are in work within what we're currently doing within that policy. So that's digging a little bit into policy HE, which gets into the budget committee process. There are 4 other policies, HD, HE, HH, HI. We're going to look at each one of those. And there's going to be some highlighting. You're going to recognize that there are some things that are in there that are said that for the longest time since this policy is written haven't necessarily been in practice. So we recognize there are some shortcomings, and there are some things that are said in there that aren't happening necessarily, and we want to make sure that they're up and going. And then some recommendations that we have from our administrative team in terms of wanting to move forward and begin that collaborative process. So moving on to the first slide there, this is policy HA, which is the title of it is Meet and Confer Goals. And it's really important. This is a great grounding page because there's lots of things that happen during Meet and Confer. We talk about working conditions. We talk about salaries. We talk about fringe benefits. We talk about policies. But all of us here as employees are here because there are children. And so our policy starts by stating that the purpose of Meet and Confer is for providing quality education. So there are lots of things, like when we talk about salaries, what does that have to do with quality education? Well, if we're going to retain the most talented staff that's capable of pulling off this quality education, we need to recruit them. We need to retain them. So you can see how, and we can go through tons of examples, but the work that we do winds up supporting this goal of providing a quality education. But it's really important that we take a look at this slide, and I highlighted those words. Purpose of providing quality education, because that's ultimately what it comes down to, is we need to be kid-centric first and foremost. Can move on to the next slide. This is just I'm actually moving part of or combining parts of our agenda. One of the big pieces of our work that we said that we were going to do with board development was looking at our strategic plan. And one big piece of our strategic plan is our core values. We talk about them so much, everybody knows these core values by word, by definition. And the awards that we do at each of our board meetings, and we'll start getting into those next time, that Spread Love Award, that LOVE stands for Living Our Values Every Day. That's what these core values are. They're not words to just be said. It's not just to go on a lapel pin or, on a piece of paper that sits on a shelf as a strategic plan. It needs to be lived out every day. And so when we talk about things like our Meet and Confer process, we need to see these core values in that. We need to see these core values in our classroom. We need to see these core values when we come together collaboratively. So this is critical to all the work that we do. And I think you guys are super familiar with that. We're starting to dig further into it, but this was like our very first starting point, our launch pad for all of our strategic plan work, and it really is evident in the work that we do. One of the pieces, as we're gonna go through each of these policies, one part of the strategic plan that we do very well is the budget committee. And it's not just the end result of a budget that you guys vote on and that we use to fund our schools and all things through it. It's the how. The how is through these core values. So I want to invite Colleen up to just give an example of there's a lot of work to be done in terms of our policy, our Meet and Confer policy, but there's also things that are being done extremely well, and they're grounded in our core values.
This is the policy that we have. Policy HE speaks to the scope of our Meet and Confer and talks about the content or the subject of those meetings, include salaries, salary schedules, our fringe benefits, working conditions, and recommendations for policy change. Again, I'm going to highlight one of those. Our policy
states that there's a representative from OEA shall participate in any of those meetings or committees that are working on those subjects under that fall under that scope of meet and confer. And so I really am glad and happy that I was invited to present with Dr. Robert tonight, because I get to highlight for all of you something that's really, really special to Osborne, which is our annual budget committee process. If you want to go ahead and move to the next one, there we go. So again, as the budget committee really aligns to our core values, I feel like the budget committee process in Osborne is a very unique process. You don't see this process in a lot of other districts in this way. And the budget committee process really embodies all of those core values, starting with growth. We kick off our budget committee season. The first meeting is really an educational. We go through School Finance 101. Members and the representatives really get to that deeper understanding of how does school funding work, how do finances work in schools. And so we really approach that budget committee representation with that first foundation that representatives get is an educational piece and growth for them in what is school finance and what's going to be expected of me as a representative member on this committee. The other piece that the committee work really gets into is that looking at future growth for the district, because with that core value, we really want to make sure that the work that we're doing today really is setting up Osborne to be better tomorrow. And that's a key piece of the budget committee work. We look at a lot of funding initiatives and priorities that budget committee talks about through a long-range plan lens, because we know that there's very limited funding that comes to Arizona schools. And so we're really looking at, and we have conversations around initiatives that maybe can't get fully off the ground that year, but we're having conversations around them and prioritizing them. So they're already identified as, hey, if additional monies come in future years, we've already prioritized that as that's work we want to continue or expand upon or be able to get off the ground with new funds later on. We also take a sustainability approach with budget committee. We talk a lot about initiatives or new things that are being added as not just one time. So budget committee isn't taking the approach of what can we do for this next school year. That's important, but we also look at it from a sustainability, because anything that we add, we want to be able to sustain for future years and the growth of Osborne. Integrity is at the core of what budget committee does, right? It's really hard work. But part of not just it being hard work is the hard work that coming together around consensus, around how do we use those limited funds for the best use for our kids. And so I think that's a real highlight of budget committee, is that the focus when we come together is really about what do our students need and how can we best utilize the limited funding that we have. The equity piece of the budget committee is there's a lot of intentionality and a lot of planning and thought that goes into the member representation of the committee. From new staff to veteran staff to equal representation from the schools. We look at special area teacher representation, special education representation, classified, certified, sites, district office, parents, board member. We're looking at that representation, and we put a lot of thought into that. The other piece with the process, though, is once the committee's established, is the structure that we've created and the expectations of those representatives on the committee, that there's this two-way, I often refer to it as this accordion, and it's this in and out that happens during the budget committee process. We come together, there's an intake of information, a sharing of ideas, and then that goes back out to the entire Osborne community. All of our employees, all of our stakeholders, that goes out through those talking points, and they have time built into their monthly processes at their sites and their departments to hear from their rep, ask questions, provide input, and then those are brought back in. And so that accordion work in and out is going out. And so all of those voices have that opportunity as part of that equity to then be present throughout the process. Another piece of that is also then the end result, right? We're thinking about those equitable distributions of resources and our financial resources that we have throughout that process, and back to that integrity piece, really how we're prioritizing best use of funds from that equity lens. Relationships, this is probably the one that I enjoy the most in the process, is the relationship piece. There's so much collaboration that happens through our committee work. You really see that highlighted through the consensus-based decision-making. There's so much care in those relationships as well, because any of you that have been on committees that are in consensus-based, there's a lot of care in that relationship to get everyone to that point of consensus. Our relationships in that committee are so strong, and we all really come together unified around a common purpose. And it's right back to that first policy that Dr. Robert shared. It's really about our focus is centered on that quality education. What do students need? How is this going to benefit our kids? How is this going to benefit Osborne moving forward? And so we're really unifying those bonds and relationships through that collaboration and consensus building. And so you might not always think of when people say budget and finances and all that process that it goes through as joyful or fun, but it really is. A lot of our members look forward to budget committee kicking off, really embrace and enjoy the process. It's very engaging, not just for the committee work, but again, with that accordion that goes in and out. So there's engagement happening at our sites through those monthly presentations out to the larger community. Feedback that has come in over the years, staff have shared that they're thrilled with the opportunity to serve on budget committee and be a member of the committee. There's also been feedback that, how much they enjoy that collaborative process. And members have been on the committee for many, many years, but we do have new members every year that come in and join us as well. With that, we also have interest in budget committee every year and don't have enough representatives because we want to make sure that our work can be productive. We have a set number of representatives, again, with that intentionality between how do we make sure there's an equal representation in our member work. But we do have wait lists at some of the schools where there's a desire, we want to be on budget committee and there's not a spot for us yet, but put me on the list, I really want to be on this committee in future years. And so something that I'm thankful that I got to share with you tonight, I really feel like budget committee embodies everything that Osborne's core values are about, and it's been a really successful process. And I enjoy facilitating and leading the process. I feel like that's been really good outcomes of that process that feel very collaborative, heard, and future of Osborne, I think just thinking back to when I started on budget committee, there's been a lot of growth that's come out of budget committee that we see in our practices now and in our compensation and in our fringe benefits and all those pieces. I think the committee wraps up every year feeling really, really proud of the work they've done and how they went about the work.
Yeah, and that how they went about the work is really super important. These 5 core values may be 5 years old, but that spirit has been in Osborne for a long time. I'd say I was talking with Patty Tate, my predecessor, in this role of superintendent. Budget committee's kind of like a baby of hers from about 20, maybe a little bit over 20 years ago, when Dr. Basnet kind of charged her to, as she was, giving her a little bit more responsibility and seeing her possibly moving towards an assistant superintendent role. She kind of gave her the meet and confer process and said, the way it's working didn't feel good. And it was really about like those working conditions here within the district and wanting a process that looked and felt good and getting some input from a lot of staff. What they felt was missing was in that equity piece, that representation, in the relationship piece, that collaboration, in the joy piece, that enjoyment during, and something that's been just truly amazing that I really, really, really compliment Colleen on so much is the growth side of it. She really is an amazing teacher. She didn't, she works in schools, but she didn't necessarily think she was going to be a teacher. But boy, is she when we're in that process. I've learned so much about how a budget is put together. And this is my job, but I've learned so much through the work with her. So it's that how that has been really, really important. One thing though, when Patty and Wilma were working on that, they used the language of the budget committee in the policy for meet and confer, and that became what meet and confer was, and there's more language in that policy that hasn't necessarily been practice that we need to take a look at. So part of what I'm going to do now is take you through the 3 other meet and confer policies, just so you can see what some of the language says, and I'm going to point out some shortcomings in the end. So Brendan, you can click to the next slide. In the first paragraph there, there's it talks about the meet and confer issues will be subject to the requirements of open meeting law. One thing that we have not done has have postings for our budget committee. Now, it's been done as committee work, so the open meeting law has absolutely been followed, because any time that there was something that was being discussed that would come to that point of taking action, there was always, whether it was a work study session or a governing board meeting, that work was done in open session and, according to open meeting law. But all of the individual budget committee meetings weren't necessarily posted. But just as a recognition, that wasn't that it wasn't following open meeting law. It said it was done as a superintendent's committee. But all of the decisions around that were actually done through open meeting law. But we really need to look at that open meeting part. The next paragraph talks about the fact that the first meeting of the school year of Meet and Confer will be no later than the first week of September. We always kick off budget committee in January. And that clearly is not what our policy tells us that we need to be doing. There are things that need to be happening back as far as, the beginning of the school year. Before moving forward, Brendan, can you go back about 3 slides to when Colleen first came up? Yeah, that one right there. One of the other things, it's not highlighted in there, but Colleen wanted to highlight the section about budget committee. But I want you to take a look at the first paragraph where it talks about the things that are the subjects of the meet and confer meetings. Like, what are those subjects? Salaries, we do that in the budget committee. Salary schedules, we've done that through the budget committee. Compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits, that's done in the budget committee. Working conditions is not. Recommendations for policy change is not. And that's supposed to be part of the meet and confer process. So you can see that there are some things that are written into our policy that they've been handled in a separate place, but they actually are part of meet and confer, and need to be done as part of meet and confer. Go on ahead and Brendan, get us back to where we were before. Okay, the next policy.
I had a question about HD. If you go back,
can you go HD?
The one we were just on right before.
The one that Colleen had done.
Go
back one
slide.
slide.
About the open meeting law and September meeting, because I'm on budget committee and I agree it's great, and I appreciate it, and I think it's a great process. And you're right, it doesn't start till January. And I've read this policy before, and I'm on budget committee. And so just so I'm clear, I don't think, it's clear to me to the policy that budget committee and a meet and confer process are 2 different things. Budget committee is additive, and there's OEA members on budget committee, and that's wonderful, and the process is great. But we're not, as a district, we're not performing all of our obligations to uphold this policy just through budget committee. And to me, that's okay. Just want to make sure we're on the same page.
However, the budget committee is the mechanism by which part of that meet and confer work is done. But you are correct in saying that there are other parts of meet and confer that aren't done. So the part of meet and confer that refers to salaries, compensation, fringe benefits, that's the work of the budget committee. And quite frankly, I'll get into this a little bit later, but quite frankly, it starts in January purposefully. We normally start budget committee at that time because, there are some districts that are done with their meet and confer process in September, which you can do. You can do that, but you also don't know what your 100th day count is. You don't know what's going to happen through the legislature, so you can wind up making commitments. We commit ourselves to a 3% raise that came through and these fringe benefit packets, and go through that and make that commitment through meet and confer early in the school year. And then you find out from your 100-day count when you're going to staffing that you're down 200 kids, or that you're down so many kids that the legislature is putting all of these kinds of mandates, and you've already done a meet and confer for the next school year, committing to a salary increase. So once that meet and confer process happens, you've made this agreement. It's now administration's role to make that happen. So part of why we've waited until January is to get all of the information that's needed so that we actually can make some of those commitments and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, in this policy we're looking at right now, it says the first meeting is supposed to happen the first week of September. To me, I read that to mean there should be multiple meet and confer meetings.
I've got some more things that'll actually get to that. So
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, is there, and maybe I'm jumping ahead here, and if I am on the presentation, feel free to tell me, I'll get there.
Yep.
But is there a meet and confer meeting? I know the first week of September is right around the corner. Is there a meet and confer meeting scheduled, or will there be one scheduled for the first week of September?
We're getting there.
Okay, there we go. You can tell me that. I'll wait.
But the answer to that is no. When I say we're getting there, that's going to come into where I'm starting to look at what some of our shortcomings and recommendations may be. So we're getting to it in the presentation.
Okay, I'll reserve my questions then.
Sure thing. All right. So this is policy HH. It talks about who's involved, because so far it's been saying OEA as that representative, because that is the association that exists. If more than one organization existed, or if another one were created, then it's not necessarily OEA. OEA is the only committee that we have, or organization that exists. I know of no, intentions of anywhere or interests anywhere of more than that. But if there were more than one association representing, then there's a policy that talks about how who would actually represent teachers in the meet and confer process. One fantastic thing is, besides, with the way we run our budget committee, it's so representative anyway that we kind of go overboard in terms of representation out of our value of collaboration and involvement of so many voices in making our decisions.
I don't want to, get too into the weeds with this because we're not talking about changing the policy, but policies like this were written, they're kind of, I don't want to say archaic, but they were written, I think, in a way to undermine the association with the idea that, there might be, let's say, AFT that comes in and they want to organize, and that could happen. But there's many districts that have moved towards, what's the word I'm thinking? Saying that OEA, for example, would be the sole representative of the teachers, and that would be in policy. And so I don't know if, that's something as a board we want to look towards doing to signify that and memorialize it within policy, but this is something that I think is a little outdated at this point.
And this is a policy that we've actually never talked about here in our meetings. I've been here for 17 years, and I've, quite frankly, I've never heard in my times, seen this policy brought up. I'm only bringing it up now. I really hope that no offense is taken in bringing this in. I was just pulling up all 5 of our meet and confer policies, but I understand what you're saying. And thank you for that historical piece.
The old
Yeah.
thing that you'll see, but yes, I think it would be good to update this one.
And the final meet and confer policy, Brendan, you can move us to the final slide. This is, I think, where you were talking, Leanne. That was about if there were more than one organization that exists. And this is the one that talks about the fact that each employee has a right to organize or join. So I think those two policies kind of going together. I think this is directly referential to what you were talking about. Am I correct?
Not entirely. This is because Arizona has always been a right to work state, which now all states technically are for public employees. And so this is just kind of identifying that you have a right to join, organize, or support or not.
Yeah. So having gone through, we can move on to the next slide. There were some very clear, that have been brought up multiple times, some shortcomings in current Osborne practices. First of those is that idea of policies calling for a start date at the beginning of September. And that's only about like the first meeting. It's not saying that the heavy work all has to be done there. But another identified shortcoming in the policy that Colleen brought up was the one of the topics that are brought up during meet and confer. We talked about the ones that we currently work on through budget committee, the salaries, the fringe benefits, those types of things. But our current meet and confer policies call for discussion of working conditions and policy recommendations as part of meet and confer. And that's not being done right now. The last identified shortcoming that I have in current Osborne practices is the idea of open meeting law considerations of our meet and confer policy. Like I mentioned before, our current budget committee meetings are not publicly posted because they've been held as a superintendent's committee. But posting them, publicly and having a well-known agenda there's no problem with that. And I really think we need to make sure that we are following all open meeting. With the law conference coming up too, these are all those types of things that we need to be aware of and that you're going to learn even more about. And so we want to make sure that we're very aware of and considerate and following those open meeting laws. So in terms of, if we recognize that these are current practices, but also recognize our values, the idea of doing the budget committee was a way of addressing the meet and confer obligation of discussing salaries, fringe benefits, and what was the third?
Salary schedules.
And salary schedules in a very values-driven way. Oh, you can go on, Brendan. That's okay. You can pull up the next one. We need to make sure that in the same way that there is that separate sentence that talks about, within the scope of meet and confer, that talks about the budget committee and OEA being, on that budget committee. We started last year for the first time a policy review committee. Prior to last year, any policy work was just done as a meeting. They're the policy advisories that come up. We're going to do some policies tonight, right? That's part of our action items. There are always those items that come directly to the board. But when it comes to review of policy, the only way that I've seen it in my tenure here within the district has been a meeting of the board and the superintendent, maybe human resources, at looking at policies. But our meet and confer policy is asking for that to be, some of that policy work to be done through meet and confer. So in the same way that we have a very collaborative and involved, with many members throughout our district involved in that budget committee, and in the same way that we did with the policy review last year, that policy review committee needs to be an annual thing. It needs to be part of the meet and confer process. I'd like to see it instead of just within the same sentence. If the salary portions and the salary schedule and the fringe benefits are worthy enough of having a separate line within that policy of saying that there's budget committee, I'd like there to be something that, signifies that policy review committee in the same way as a budget committee, a working conditions committee be put together. But to me, it's really important, that we look for any change that we're possibly looking at making to this policy to be values driven. We see the one place that it's done very successfully with the budget committee and how important it is that it's done through those values. if we're going to be adding different types of committee work, of course, OEA would be inclusive of all of those committees. And Ed, what you were talking about, the beginning of September, the budget committee in and of itself doesn't necessarily have all of the information that it needs for doing that budget work. Like January is a really appropriate place for that. But working conditions, we do working conditions surveys at the end of our school year. At the beginning of the year is a good time for that work on working conditions, reviewing that data, looking at recommended changes, looking at the survey in and of itself, if there are any pieces of that. So that's the piece of meet and confer that could really start in the beginning of the year, as well as the policy review. A lot of times, the budget committee can't take action because of policies that may be in place. So then it's like, oh, we need to look at this policy. And that's a way for this to be a cohesive piece that I think those, the policy review and the working conditions pieces of the meet and confer are something that can actually be started right at the beginning of the year. And you can hold off on the budget conversations of the meet and confer until we have the appropriate data to be doing so. I'd also like to see all, meetings subject to open meeting posting. So the purpose of today was for me to take a look at what these policies are, give you a little bit of a historical vision of those. We have clearly recognized through conversations, not just at the beginning of this year, but over the past year, and the reason that it's been asked to come before you, as a here at a formal board meeting is recognizing some of those shortcomings. And we're ready to begin the collaborative, process of starting to look at policy changes.
I've got a few questions and thoughts, but let me open it up first.
I'm glad that this is something that we're finally talking about. I know that this has been brought up at several board meetings, so thank you for adding this to the agenda and, starting this conversation. What's really missing here, though, is that Meet Confer is not just a committee. It's not just a time to talk about the budget or policy or working conditions or those kind of things. Meet Confer really is an opportunity to have that collective bargaining that we are fortunately allowed to have here in Arizona. And it really should result in an agreement, a working agreement, a professional agreement, depending on what district you're in, they may call it different things, that should be looked at every year or however most districts do it a year long here. If you go to other states, sometimes they're 3 or 5 year agreements. It just kind of depends. But I think most districts here do 1 year agreements. And you should be reviewing what's already in there and building off of it each year. I think what we are doing by, obviously we have different budgets every year. We have different things coming from the state. We have to talk about salaries every year or, certain things, more on a yearly basis. But things like working conditions, those things, those can be updated on an as needed basis. As you've talked about one thing this year, you might not need to review it for the next year. So you talk about other things and you start to make this district an even better place to work. It also gives our employees power to know what their rights are as an employee. But then I also think it gives our administrators clarity on what it is that they need to do to support their staff. If there's an issue with class size, hey, we can look in our professional agreement and see what the language is. If there isn't language, hey, maybe that's something that we need to come together and talk about during Meet and Confer. Things like we talked about hours in policy, what a working day looks like. Those are things that should be in like a professional agreement. There's different components, and I think a big piece that we're missing is there's not really a document that memorializes that and then makes that very clear. two of us are currently in Phoenix Union. One of us is a former Phoenix Union employee. And that's something that actually drew me to going to Phoenix Union, because there is clarity. They have a professional agreement. I know that, there can be, from administrators' viewpoint, maybe some restrictions to that. But also it gives you that opportunity. There's a space and a time to really talk about how, hey, maybe this isn't working right now. We have a formal process to go through that. I heard a lot of we in the presentation, and what the we sounded like was the budget committee, right? Is that most of what that was when you were talking about we? You said something like we have prioritized different things. Is that budget committee, or is that someone else usually?
In reference to the slides that I presented, yes, when I was referring to we, I was referring to the budget committee collective of all the members.
Okay.
I think I'm interpreting the we in the other pieces as we as the district, we as our policies.
Okay. I think the other piece that concerns me about that is oftentimes that's admin driven, whereas if you're really, having a true meet and confer process, there's different models of what that looks like. There's the IBN process, there's bargaining for the common good, whatever, you kind of determine is the avenue that you all wanted to do for that. There's a process where the association is coming with, hey, here's our priorities. This is what we've gotten. And oftentimes, most locals are not just looking at their own members, but they're collectively looking at the certified employees, classified employees, whoever that they represent, not just members, but anybody that would fall under that. And then administration's also coming with, hey, here's our priorities. And then you come and you find, how can we marry these two together? How can we work towards common goals? Using, the core values that we have. So I'm just concerned that we're kind of missing some of those pieces with how we're currently doing it. And I think with the recommendation with the policy, by adding more committees, we're kind of doing more work, because I think year after year we're probably reviewing the same things that we don't necessarily need to, because it could be in a working agreement and we're just revising as needed. But then we've also got all these different committees that are kind of diluted in a way. And in Osborne, we have a very progressive community. We have a community that's, that wants our employees to have a voice. And I think that the more that we make it difficult for our association and our unions to have that voice and input, the less we can really say that we are equitable and focused on that social justice, because we're taking away the voice of our own employees.
Yeah, I agree on a lot of those points there, and it's hard just to come up, and I really appreciate the presentation, because it's hard to say, hey, the shortcomings, like what the last slide was said, our practices are falling short of what our policies say, and that's a hard thing to come out and say, and I really appreciate, being really open and transparent about that. It's not an easy thing to do. But I would really, maybe there's some policy changes that need to be made for meet and confer to make it better. But I think that's probably something that should be in the meet and confer, a meeting in that meet and confer until we change the policy. And that's when I say we, I mean, we, this board who set policy. I really would like to see you sitting down, having that meet and confer in that first week of September. It's not too late. And see, I kind of feel like Leanne, that agenda, I don't know what's on it, and I probably don't need to know. But I would love that to be a collaborative process with OEA, with the district, formulating that agenda. One of the positive parts of having it, I mean, it's our policy, it's going to be subject to open meeting law, is that, and there's no confusion over whether the meet and confer happened. There's a published, agenda out there somewhere. And what I heard from OEA is that, we feel like we're not following policy right now. And so, and I totally see that because we're not. And so I'd love to see that starting to happen, even if, one of the items on that agenda is, hey, how does everybody feel about the current policy? Where do we want to go with that? And maybe other things too. I'm sure I don't want to drive the decision of what's on there. I also don't want to restrict, and say, hey, because there's a budget committee, you can't put X, Y, or Z on the meet and confer agenda. I don't think that would be appropriate. Ultimately, it's this body, this elected body here that is going to approve the budget after a lot of discussion. And I think our policy is saying that we're committed to doing a lot of discussion in addition to the budget committee through this meet and confer process on whatever happens to be on those agendas. So it's a tall ask, it's a lot of work, but I would love to see that happening. And if we choose to, this body chooses to change those policies, then, I would love to see that come through meet and confer first, be vetted, and hopefully have a consensus on what that looks like.
Yeah, one of the things about the process that has been, and I think, Colleen alluded to this wonderfully, this idea of as progressive of a community that we live in and would want to see that power given to, its employees and its teachers. I would have to say that there's probably the most shining example of that is in our budget committee. That's why we chose to highlight that in this process. There's nothing that brings out the voices more, and it brings out the voices of those that aren't in the Teachers Association as well. That's something that we really wanted to drive the point home, is how inclusive and collaborative the entire process is. For starters, there are some things on there in terms of shortcomings, more things that need to be included in the meet and confer process. The start date, that's a simple fix. Open meeting law, that's a simple fix. But the heart of the work that we've been doing is actually one of the most functional, healthy, and beautiful collaborative pieces of work that's done in the district. And one of the things that I would want to do and most want to be part of is to see any policy changes that have to do with meet and confer meet the spirit of the work that we are so doing. Like, if there's any one thing that I could drive home clearer or most want to highlight, is the fantastic work that is being done with this policy and how much work is getting done and is being done in a way that we collectively have said through our strategic plan that we want to be doing the work. But in terms of next steps, a traditional meet and confer process, in terms of our setup for doing that, we're not set up for that traditional meet and confer process right now.
What do you mean?
In terms of, like, if we were going to do a traditional meet and confer, which is bringing the opportunity for talking about those issues into the room where you have the association representing, we don't have any other association, so it would be OEA representing, it would be the human resources basically there on in that other side, and that facilitated process. Our process is far more inclusive than that. So
Go ahead.
Can I ask why? Different districts set up meet confer differently, so I think that's why you want to have that process start in September. And I think this year, really starting it, you have that meeting and you talk about, hey, this is what we think this should look like. OEA's there, you all are there. You can have your, you can have however you want your committee or whatever set up. OEA can determine that. You can include within that committee, however you want to set it up. I just think that that's your opportunity in September to determine what that looks like, what the norms of that process are, who will be there at the table. It's not just like Storm, the president, and HR sitting across from each other. You can determine what that piece looks like. And maybe you kind of revamp what that budget committee looks like. I don't think you have to necessarily scrap all the things from budget committee. I think we just have to look at how are we going to start following the meet and confer process in a way that best fits the needs of Osborne.
Right. And so the part that I was, trying to show was that we actually are doing that in terms of coming together and determining who's going to be there and what that process is going to look like and going through that. But it's not inclusive of all the pieces of meet and confer. There are some pieces with the working conditions, with the policy considerations that haven't been done through that. So that can most certainly be added to it. But I would hate to see the nature of the inclusivity that we've had through the budget committee be swayed from something that is very functional and very representative of the good of this district.
Can I add?
Sure.
So I would really, really like to see, I think it would complement nicely the work of the budget committee to have those conversations around working conditions and policy recommendations start early. I think we've kind of begun that path this year. Something came up in budget committee last spring in regards to retirement and leave payouts. It was brought up by one of our more senior veteran teachers in the district, and that $50 a day that has been in policy for a long time hadn't changed. And so it actually came up through budget committee, but budget committee wasn't in a position to be able to really make recommendations or do that because it's policy driven. And so then having that policy committee that came together at the end of the school year and into June do that work and bring that back to the board as recommendation, I think it kind of sets itself up, and it complements budget committee's process nicely in the spring, because going into budget committee, there's going to be that piece of these are already identified priorities. These are already things that have come up through those other policy reviews or working condition work that then budget committee can say, okay, these are already things that we're going to prioritize and try to find money for. Before we think of other priorities, we need to make sure we're addressing these things that have come up through those other policy review and working conditions pieces in the fall. So I would really like to see those things out ahead of budget committee because it kind of lends itself to that roadmap of budget committee's work. So that's just one thought I have. Another thought in just kind of being set up if we do something different and we go that way, I think for me, it would be really great to have, I don't know that we could get there in one meeting, kind of having a foundation, because as Dr. Robert was sharing, this has been historical practice in Osborne for so many years now. We don't have kind of that facilitator with that expertise. I think we would need to bring an outside facilitator in to help set us up on the right path if that's the direction we go. And I don't know that we can turn that around the first week of September. But that's just my piece, because just knowing my expertise and where it's been a long time since I've been in a district that had negotiation-based meetings around meet and confer. I don't know that Dr. Woodland has had that experience in her tenure here in Osborne as human resources. And so I think it could really set us up. Again, my lens is always that longevity in future years. And so starting off on the right foot, I would like to see that supported through some type of facilitation. So just my...
I think to start it off small would be, great, but, and then it evolves over time too. So, yeah.
And I would also just add my own, I'm a big champion of the budget committee process, and I think a lot of the representatives, if you heard from those that have served on budget committee over the years, really have enjoyed that collaborative piece that really aligns to our values. Negotiation-based agreements tend by nature to draw a line.
in that process. So my voice in that, if I have one, and how that, if we move in this direction, is really going to make sure that the consensus is at the root of that. And you typically don't hear that when you think of negotiations based. It's a line, and there's negotiation, and there's give and take. And I worry that you would lose collaboration and consensus in that process. But that's because those are the pieces that I value so much of the budget committee.
I think that's one model. I wouldn't start with bargaining for the common good, but if that's something that you all wanted to move into, I think that's something that takes time to really set up. But, I think that there are other ways to kind of meet those goals, but in a more, not as much of like a tit for tat kind of model, if you will. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would just, last thing I'll say is it's just, I think starting small and encourage you just, I think maybe the first, I don't know, maybe only thing on that first meeting agenda is what does everybody want that meet and confer process to look like? And having that discussion be one of the first things during meet and confer. And it doesn't have to be a big to-do. Maybe I'm naive, but it can just be hey, how's September 3rd work for meet and confer? Let's sit down. What do you guys want to talk about? Okay, the meet and confer process seems like a logical place to start. What do you want that to look like? And, do you want a facilitator? Do you want a facilitator? And just have that discussion. The only way to start doing that is, I guess, sit down and start that discussion. So
Yep. And we've already reached out for our first meeting of the year, and setting up that calendar of meetings for the year. So I think we're well positioned to get this work underway.
Sounds good. Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much for the presentation. Moving on to administrative reports. Any questions or comments on administrative reports?
I just wanted to start off by saying I don't ask the schools to submit a report formally until they have something to report on. So I thank Kim for her lovely beginning of the year.
Yeah, Kim didn't get the memo.
So gold star for Encanto, but I want you to recognize why there weren't all of the school reports that are there.
Yeah, and I read Jamal's report as well. So maybe clap for Jamal as well. Great job on the report. Okay, hearing no other questions on the reports we do have, moving on to action items, action or approval. Approval of delegate and alternate as discussed to represent the Osborne School District at the Arizona School Boards Association Delegate Assembly on September 7th, 2024. I am looking for anyone to volunteer to do this at the Delegate Assembly of September 7th. I know we've sent Board Member Peralta for the last few years.
And he's not able to be here today. I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut you off, but I just wanted to mention he's not able to be here, but he did email me and say that he's willing to be the delegate for the Delegate Assembly. This is his last year of board service, but he did want all of you to know what an amazing opportunity, learning and participating opportunity it is. So he's willing to be that person, but also totally open to any of you jumping in.
Let's.
Is it September 7th or September 9th? Because it said both dates in the agenda.
It's the 7th.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to.
Which is the Saturday.
Yeah, September 7th is a Saturday, so it's on September 7th. Is there anyone here who would be willing to do it and to represent the Osborne School District at the Assembly?
I would like to nominate myself. I'm already going to be at the ASBA Law Conference the prior 2 days, and so if you guys will have me, I'll just spend a third day at the Camelback Inn.
Absolutely. We would love to have you. We'd love to have you represent us. Thank you so much. Do we need to pick a
You do. So we've got, for the delegate, and so pick an alternate, and then you'll need to take action on it. Then, once approved, we need to figure out if you're going to do that service in person or virtually, because Lisa actually has to get you enrolled tonight. So choose an alternate.
Leanne, do you want to be alternate?
I nominate Leanne to be the alternate.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm going to move that we designate Board Member Ford as the delegate and Board Member Greenberg as the alternate to represent the Osborne School District at the Arizona School Boards Association Delegate Assembly on September 7th.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It has been approved. Thank you so much for representing us. You'll do a great job, I know it.
Before we move, are you going to go in person?
I am.
Okay. Did you already say that? And I.
No.
All right. Thank you. And Leanne? If you wind up being called, okay. There we go.
Wonderful. Okay, next is approval of the Arizona School Boards Association proposed 2025 political agenda and direct the district's delegate to the ASBA Delegate Assembly to represent the board's determined position. And this is, I feel like we did this recently.
Yes, this is, you did that, you put in your priorities, so this is basically you're giving them the charge. So you're making your formal vote to direct the delegate to now take our political agenda forward.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve the proposed political agenda for ASBA and direct the delegate to ASBA Delegate Assembly to represent the board's determined position.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Move and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to approval of the first reading of the ASBA policy revisions to the following policies.
All right, so you got a whole list of policies. Most of these policies are driven by legislative action. Just wanted to point out a few highlights of things that are in there. I'm not going to be exhaustive with this, but some of the things some of those changes that came through legislation, there's a specification in some policies that talked about sexual harassment. Change of the language to be sex discrimination, including sexual harassment. That shows up in multiple policies, including the one where it talks about grievances. It mentions sex discrimination, including sexual harassment, but also has a required measures in case of sex discrimination for how the district will be supportive of the individual, making sure that that part is inclusive. The same type of thing applies to students. There's some changes about requirements of disclosure in hiring related to either professional or support staff that they have to disclose if they have been involved in certain things legally that they shouldn't have been and have been convicted. There's one policy, IKF, that's on there. You'll see in my description it says not to approve. That talks about graduation requirements. And Osborne, because we're elementary, doesn't even have an IKF, so we don't want to do anything with it. Last two changes that of note in enrollment procedures. There's a clause in there that allows you to make enrollment for open enrollment exceptions that for children of U.S. military active duty or killed in the line of duty as a preference in open enrollment. And the last thing of note is the change of anywhere in policies that talks about certified health professionals changes that language to licensed health professionals. But it's pretty ledge-driven changes, nothing majorly substantial. So with a simple motion that will to approve the first reading, that'll include the non-inclusion of IKF.
Any questions, Board Member Greenberg?
I just had a question for the open enrollment one. Is that right now it's not specific to, because I think right now in policy for open enrollment, isn't there kind of like a...
It doesn't, it's not specified in there where in the list, but it's saying that you can include that as one of your specifications for open enrollment.
Okay, is that something that you're thinking will come to us later on about where in the line that would be?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the first reading of the ASBA policy revisions.
Any second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Hearing none, it does pass. Wonderful. And we already did our bond update. So moving on to our board development.
One more action item.
Oh, you're right. I saw D here. Approval of the English language development teacher job description.
Yes. So, protocol having already been established and almost nearing the end of our night, we have a new position that we'd like to introduce. I'm here just as because I'm HR director, but I do have our administrator for federal and community programs here to provide any insight if you all have questions. The job description is outlined there for you all to review, and if you have questions, then I'm assuming Stephanie is going to be able to answer them. This is a new role we haven't had prior.
They're hired and working without a job description, so we're bringing you the job description.
Is this somebody at each school, or is there somebody that's splitting schools? How does that?
So the district was awarded the SEI grant, and it is funding a half-time certified teacher that will have a specialty to support our students learning English.
Wow.
Okay, and then is it more like a specialist model, and they like pull out, push in? What's the?
So the expectation
All the
from
above.
ADE is that it would be considered a pull-out position. We also do want to consider the needs of our students. So once we have this position approved, then we'll take a look at last year's data and the first couple of weeks of data that through the assessments that the students have already had to make the decision to prioritize. It's one position though.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for getting the grant. You're so prolific at pulling this money into our district, and especially getting more just hands and bodies working with our kids and helping our kids is just a phenomenal thing. So thank you so much for that. Any
I
other
apologize if I
questions?
misspoke. Do we have someone hired for this position?
No.
Okay, I was thinking
I
about
was like, what?
I was thinking.
Dr. Rivera's got something in mind.
Sorry, I was thinking the other grant position that we hired for the literacy piece. My bad.
Yeah.
Was like,
Well, I do.
I'm not gonna say anything, but sheesh.
I mean, so things happen, and I want to, I'm glad everybody feels empowered to jump on any grant and any money that you can do. And sometimes we do approve things after the fact. But that being said, I do always appreciate when we have the time to bring things to the board in advance, whether that be, a lease, whether that be an agreement, bringing that before it starts going into effect, or in this case, hiring somebody. Totally understand sometimes that's just not feasible, right? So anyways, that's a complete tangent. Unless there's any other questions.
Just one last question. I can't remember. I know that the SEI endorsement is not something that's required anymore for general teachers. Would that be something, whether that or another endorsement, that we would want at least as a preferred item that we should add?
Well, I'll speak to the majority of teachers who were certified probably up until like 2015, 2016. It's already a part of their certifications. However, for this particular role, it's not currently listed as a requirement, if you will. So that, I guess you could say, alleviates a potential barrier to people who might be newly certified, and it's no longer a part of their education prep programs via their bachelor's and or their master's degree.
Would that be something we would want to add as like a preferred thing?
My question is then, what differentiates this particular position than any other teacher positions if we're focusing on like the ELD component?
That's a good question. That is a good point.
So I would agree with Board Member Greenberg to add something that's going to differentiate an ELD teacher from a general classroom teacher.
Anything else?
So you can just make your, revised when you make a motion, with revision added.
Board Member Greenberg, do you want to make that motion? Yep.
All right. I will motion to approve the ELD teacher job description with the addition of an SEI endorsement or some sort of ESL endorsement preferred, whatever that is called.
That works.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Hearing none, it does pass. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Moving on to board development, I see the ASBA Maricopa County meeting at Glendale, ASD, September 23rd. We talked about the law conference and the delegate assembly. Anything else that needs to be said on either of those items?
Just not on the law conference. That registration's done. Just the county meetings. If anybody wanted to attend the county meetings, is it a virtual event or is it in person again? It's in person. If anybody's interested in attending the ASBA Maricopa County meeting, let Lisa know. And the last piece that's on there in terms of like that professional development piece, I think we talked about the part of our core values plenty tonight. So I thought we'd take a pause on the reading just because we were already pretty well grounded in one aspect of our strategic plan. But I also think, kind of how we talked last time, instead of just plunging forward and reading, that we take a little bit of time around the planning on the readings that we did from sections 1 and 2 and start thinking about that needs assessment part of strategic plan.
Yep.
So nothing planned further for tonight.
Yeah, sounds fair. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and then we're going to pick this up on the board as a board development item for more discussion in the future, unless anybody's like, I got to talk about it. I'm going to go ahead and move on and we still have an executive session yet. So I'm going to move on to reflection/feedback on the meeting. I'm going to start with Board Member Ford.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge all of our new employees here in Osborne. I know most of our new teachers have already left, and I hope they're enjoying time with their family right now and relaxing. But I just want our new teachers and all of our current staff to know that you have 5 board members and a superintendent who have been in your shoes. Every one of us has been in a classroom, and I think that's really special about our board is that we really understand what our teachers go through every day, and we want to, as a board, be here for our employees. So to our new teachers, thank you for choosing Osborne. For our continuing teachers, thank you for continuing to choose Osborne. This is a very special place, and so thank you for what you do. And then my reflection, I know it was part of the consent agenda, and so we moved through it very quickly, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Robert and all of the folks at the district office who do such a great job building community partnerships. There is a list of people and community members, businesses, partnerships that we have here with Osborne that are so great. This makes these make our schools better. These give us better experiences for our students. And so I'm just really proud of the partnerships that have been built here throughout the years. I love to see some of the really amazing things like ASU School of Social Work, Southwest Human Development, Rooted Soul, the Phoenix Indian Center, all of those incredible places that have really positive outcomes for students. So thank you for all the hard work you've done to foster those relationships and continue to support our students. Thank you.
Board Member Ramos.
Ditto on the welcoming all of our new staff. That's really awesome. I think that our new principal said, this is a place where she feels loved and challenged, and I hope that all of our new staff feel the same way. And then in regards to the partnerships, I'm super excited as a reflection for the partnership coming up with City Year. I think that'll be really great for our students. I know it's starting with one school, and hopefully from there we'll be able to continue to other schools.
Board Member Greenberg.
All right, I definitely like to echo how welcoming this district is to new hires. I know that I've never had that experience at a board meeting in any other district, so it's nice as a board member, and I think that would be a great thing to see other districts do to really welcome their new hires. I also, during the Welcome Back Week, Rhiannon and I had an opportunity to join on, I think it was that Friday, with all the staff, and a highlight for me was seeing the staff get up when Dr. Robert was like, hey, if you've served 5 years, if you've served 20 years, so on and so forth. And it was really awesome to see that. I think we have so many great new people coming in, and we have so many people that have been with us for a long time, and everything in between. So it was really nice to see that visual and that acknowledgement. I also remember as a teacher working with Operation School Bell. I think it's an incredible experience for our teachers and our students. It's so positive, and just a really great opportunity, and it's a lot of fun too. So I'm really glad that we have a partnership with them. And then I was also excited to see Prop 301 come to us again. I know that that's something we've talked about in previous years. There's a lot of hoops that all of you at some level have to jump through and stuff. So however, we can support you all and make it, a positive place to be, the better. And I think with our Prop 301 plan, we're really acknowledging that we don't need to make our staff jump through a million hoops to get a little extra pay.
It was so great to see all the new teachers, and it's so much fun. And I loved all the flair that all of our principals gave. It was so much fun to see. And what's really interesting to me is you can already see the NAU teacher residency program and the effect it's having already, and it's just fairly short period of time. You see so many teachers who had gone through the program, now they're at Osborne, or who are currently in the residency program, who I got to speak with today. It's really neat, and that program, another innovation that Dr. Robert led and this district is doing, that is just really paying dividends in a short period of time, and it's going to continue to do so. It's so great anytime we can bring in new hands into the district to help out, especially when we have such limited funds sometimes. So we're stretching all of that as much as possible. That those partnerships, that NAU program, all of that is making that happen. So it's just a blast. It's good to be back, and it's good to see everybody this school year. Dr. Robert?
Yeah, I mean, this first meeting, it's always so joyful seeing the faces of new folks. But I also just love the energy that our principals bring. They're excited to be here, but they're so excited because of how they're greeted and how they're welcomed. So it's always fantastic to see the love that they're greeted with and that our community's greeting with them.
Future agenda items. Any future agenda items? Board Member Ford?
None for me, thank you.
Board Member Ramos?
None for me.
Board Member Greenberg?
I'd just love to get an update on, where Meeting for is going. And I know you guys have loved me talking about that today, so love to talk about it more. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do have one. I'd love to have a future agenda item of, however this looks like, maybe there's a work session, I don't know, but talk about school drop-off. This is the beginning of the school year, and we talk a lot about joy up here. And I tell you, sometimes I see people in their cars and it's not a joyful situation. We've seen it. We've seen it. And you know what? It does. It affects, I think, our staff. It affects our principals. It affects a lot of people. I know I certainly get a lot of messages about it, just the drop off. So just love to see what we can do to make all parts of the journey more joyous, more maybe less polluting. If you can figure out a way to get more kids to school without having to be in a car, whether that being more kids on a bus or walking or taking a bike. But I know it takes a lot of work, but love to see that. Dr. Rivera?
I don't give future
Oh, yeah,
items.
of course. All right, we are adjourned our regular session. Everybody have a good night, and we're going to move into executive session. So you should go into you right next. You do.